My name's Randy Lewis. You're here or there, out here. This is Ran-Lew Dairy, I guess you'd call it. I'm the 5th generation. Lewis has been here on this farm. I guess they were farmers, mechanics, agriculturists of all up until the 40s, in which my grandmother started milking cows by hand in those days and producing, we called it barnyard milk, but it's manufactured grade milk. And then they started producing grade A milk in 1948 or 50 or somewhere. And so there, the last 3 years my grandmother milked, there wasn't anybody here much but me and her, so we did all of that, and I sort of got the dairying bug. It's the family business, you might say. And then I bought the farm in 1980 and started for myself in 1981. And I've been at it off and on ever since.
All right, so give us a sense of scale here. What kind of acreage? How many cows usually run here?
Well, right now, the farm's 110 acres. And the original farm my great-grandfather had was about 190 acres, but when my great-grandmother died, her two sons, my grandfather and his brother, they divided the farm. And since my granddaddy looked after his mama, he got the house and a little more land, and the other brother built a house next door and he got a little less land, so that's how they did. But I farm most of it now. I farm about 150 acres of the original 190 that was in the farm.
Okay.
And so we milk about 50 cows now, plus or minus 10. We never get below 40 and don't ever get above 50 or 55 probably, but with our new venture here of bottling milk on the farm, we're responsible for doing something with all of it, and I don't like running milk down the drain too much, so we try to match the cows with our with our demand needs, pretty close, and about 50 cows is where we're at.
One thing that's different about the farm here is the cows are on pasture most of the day, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. For us, it's very important that the cows get off cement. We have a little cement where they get fed and go in the barn to be milked. But for the most part, they spend 90% of the day either out grazing or lounging in the pasture. In the summertime, we have ample shade. For the way we do things, it's better for our cows just to be out and about.
Okay, in terms of their diet, are they getting a lot of it from pasture, or how does that work?
Depending on the time of the year, in the spring when the grazing's good, they get essentially all of their forage from pasture. In the summertime, we have to supplement sometimes with a little forage, hay or silage, and then we have good grazing again in the fall, and then of course in the winter there's not much of anything, but we're able to grow enough feed through the summer months to get us through the winter most of the time. If not, we'll buy some hay or whatever. But we feed our ration is 90% forage and maybe 10% grain. So this is kind of how life starts out here on the farm. We usually get the calves up from their mothers about 12 to 24 hours after they're born. We make sure we get colostrum in them because that's critical for their immune systems to get started. And a calf that doesn't get colostrum in the first 24 hours is probably going to die. They have no immune system and they get it from their mothers. And so we move them from their moms and put them in calf hutches. We get asked a lot about the hutches, about why we don't let the calves stay with their mothers longer or whatever like this. And there's kind of a twofold reason for that. The first one being we're in the milk selling business. We're not raising beef or whatever else. So milk is where we make our money. So we feed the calves milk, of course, but we need to keep most of it for us to use. So we raise the calves without it. And the second thing is that it breaks a lot of disease cycles. These calves they don't come into contact with each other. If you happen to get a little bug or something in, you can move them. And They can also, like sucking on each other, they can also do damage to their udders when they're very small. So individually raising them in pens like this is just a good way to keep them clean and keep them healthy, and and get them a good start in life. And I think that's, as for anything else, it's getting a good start is very critical.
And how long does this process last?
They stay in the hutches about 60 to 90 days, depending on how well they do. If they grow fast, we'll get them out usually in about 60 days. And if they're a little slower, don't get to eating grain quite as fast, we'll leave them in a little extra. We've always got a little extra milk anyway, so we keep them around long enough to make sure they get off to a good start. This little girl here is only about 3 days old, and she's very happy. She got fed this morning. She's already looking for the nighttime bottle. Doesn't make much difference what time it shows up. She's ready.
And so over the last few decades, have you really sort of dialed in the genetics and your?
Yeah, we still have. When people ask us about the breeds of cows we have, we have registered Jerseys, Guernseys, Holsteins, Brown Swiss, one milk and shorthorn, and then we have crosses of all the above. So we have. Well, we were probably 95% Holstein when we were producing commercial milk. Since we've moved into being a producer processor, our shift has changed a whole lot. So we're sort of in the process of we call it changing colors, so to speak, because the Jerseys and Guernseys are red. And so if you'll see, like this calf is half Holstein and half Guernsey, and she's got that red tint to her. And so the Jerseys and Guernseys graze a little better, and they're also they have a higher component content, which for us is the main thing is butterfat. So since our focus is shifting to more grazing, and we need, for gelato and other products, we need as high butterfat as we can get. So we're in the process of doing more crossbreeding, moving toward mainly Jerseys and Guernseys, and moving away from the Holsteins.
Can we talk a little bit about the dairy industry as a whole? And I think a lot of people know that there's been a lot of issues, but I think it's complicated, right?
Right. Well, the dairy industry has just been I guess the old adage is you get big or get out, and that's been sort of the way it is. When I was a kid in Alamance County, there were, 80 dairies in the county or something, and now there's like 4 or 5 left, and some of them are heading out, mainly due to age and low milk prices, of course. So the dairy is very complicated. The people who have stayed in it or whatever have been burning up equity for the last 20 years, pretty much. So it's if you stayed in it, you either you had to do it because you loved it or were just too stubborn to quit. I don't know what it is. For me, it's probably a little of both. Somebody told me one time I was just too old, too stupid, and too prideful to change, and I think that might be some truth about it. But so in my time, I've been doing this for about 40 years now, and the dairy industry was a lucrative business to be in back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, people made money. You had to usually get a little bigger, or you had to update with a little technology or whatever, but it didn't cost so much money. And I can remember very well when I was helping my grandmother, the most cows we ever milked was 32, and a 50 cow herd back then was big. And I thought, Lord, whenever people went to milking 100 cows, how would they ever, they couldn't grow enough feed, or you just couldn't milk that many cows. And now I don't think there's I don't think there's a definition to big anymore. I used to think 50 cows was big or 100 cows was big. Well, now 5,000 ain't big, or 10,000 may not be big enough. I don't know where the big gets to anymore. It's I think as small independent people, we fight this economy of scale all the time, and it's made it, at least in the dairy industry, for the most part, if you're going to stay small, then you're going to have to find a different way to do it. You're going to have to find a niche market or whatever, because, selling commercial milk you can't survive. I don't know anybody with a small acreage and a small number of cows without finding a value-added way to produce it is going to survive very long. Unless they've got a really deep pocket or some investor somewhere who just likes looking at the cows walk by when they go out in the pasture every day.
All right, so I want to talk about how you guys have differentiated, but in terms of the overall industry, is it mainly because there's more and more milk and driving the price down in terms of like too much supply? Is it, buying power for small farms to like reduce their costs?
The reason
I know this is
the
complicated.
situation is very complicated. I think you could probably do a PhD thesis on it and still not cover the ground all that well. But the dairy industry, the industry as a whole has advocated large cows, large numbers of cows, and high production for the last 40 years. I mean, that's and that's sort of how people have survived as inputs have gone up in price and the price of milk has either stayed low or got lower or whatever. The only way that you could survive was just become more efficient and produce more milk and try to for less money. And it gets to be a point where you can't do that anymore. I mean, you either run out of acres, you run out of cows, you run out of something, and and so then you're stuck because you've got all this, you got land, you got cows, and you still can't make a living. So what do you do? And a lot of people quit. A lot of people quit dairying and went into beef, or around here they built chicken houses or hog houses or whatever else. People diversified and tried to find something that was better than the dairy. A lot of people grain farm now instead, but for us, we don't have enough land to do any of those things. So we had finally, lost enough money that we just decided we had to come up with a way to do that or quit.
Okay, so can you talk about sales? Like for most dairy situations, are they selling wholesale bulk? Like, how does that work?
Okay, all right. So the way milk's marketed most of the time in a commercial field anyway, milk's marketed by in 100-pound weight lots, I guess you'd call it. So if you're selling to the co-op, they pay you on a 100-pound basis, and you get paid. It's mainly based on your butter fat. Well, at least in North Carolina, it's based on butter fat, on a 3.5% butter fat. If you're above 3.5%, you get paid a little premium, and if you're below that, I think if you get below 3.2 or something, they might dock you a little bit or whatever. So butter fat or components are the driving factor in how milk gets priced. The Southeast being in a milk deficit, there's always been, our milk here has always been in demand for fluid milk, and as far as for manufactured milk for cheese or whatever else, a lot of that milk comes from out west or up north because they can produce it cheaper, and that's where the corn's grown at up there. So it made sense to put the dairies where the corn and where the grain's at. And so there's been for lack of a better term, there's been a pipeline for excess milk from the northeast and the west. I just call it west like in Texas, into the southeast for forever. That's where the deficit in the fluid milk market comes from. A lot of it from Pennsylvania, New York, I guess as far as Michigan sometimes, Ohio. Those are the states that we bring a lot of milk into. Bring a lot of milk into this area from to supply the fluid market, and so that's the way it's set up, and anymore, I guess they can produce it so much cheaper, and with transportation still, I guess, relatively cheap, then it makes rather than producers producing it here, it's cheaper to buy cheaper milk from somewhere else and ship it in here versus producing it here.
Seems like the same sort of thing going on in all sorts of kinds of food.
I was going to say, I mean, there's even like strawberries. There's a lot of strawberries grown in North Carolina, but there's tractor trailer loads of strawberries come out of California here every day.
Even though it's being shipped, it's still cheaper, so people are buying it.
Yeah.
So why has there been a milk deficit in the Southeast?
Well, it's just it's hot down here. Cows don't produce like they do up north, and it's just harder to make milk, and it costs more to make it.
Cool. I don't think anyone probably realizes there's a regionality to it.
And there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people down here, and we just don't produce that much milk.
Okay. And so let's talk about one of the big ways that you guys have differentiated yourselves in terms of sales. So you guys want to show us about that?
Yeah. I mean, so for us, we had to figure out a way to produce a niche, to find a niche market, make one, do something to get a value-added product, or we were not going to survive. And so when we started batting around doing this processing thing, we started talking about equipment and doing things sort of like big plants do, but I guess there might be a twofold reason for it. Some of it's economics. All of the things that big milk plants do cost a lot of money, and I don't have any money. So we decided maybe we'd just take a little more natural approach to the dairy industry, and we'd try to do as little to it as possible and make it legal and sell it and see how it goes. So I guess we decided a more natural approach was better. And my saying is that milk ain't broke, it don't need fixing, and so you don't need to do much to it. So for us, we decided to go with a non-homogenized product. It's for, if you don't understand homogenization, that's why cream doesn't rise to the top anymore, is because of the homogenization process essentially explodes the fat molecule into such a small particle that it can't go back together anymore to form, to form cream or whatever. So
is that done by just mixing it up?
No, it's done with a machine called an homogenizer, and what that is it's almost like a car motor that takes a piston that pushes milk through a very small hole at a very high pressure, and the fat globules being bigger, but it just explodes that fat globule. It goes through, it's such high pressure, it explodes that fat molecule into such a small thing it can't go back together.
So what's the benefit of homogenization?
I don't really know. I'm not sure there is one. Part of it is a homogenized product. It's the same all the time, and I think that's, I think homogenization didn't really come into favor that much till after World War II. But I mean, it's made everything. That's why, with homogenization and stabilizers and additives like carrageenan or starch or gum or whatever, that's why when you drink chocolate milk now, you don't have to shake it up because there's an additive put in it that makes the chocolate bind with the milk so it stays in suspension. Whereas, that also might irritate your stomach or whatever else like that. So we just decided that we were going to take a more natural approach to doing everything. We don't use any stabilizers, no carrageenan, starch, gum, anything like that. We don't, we don't homogenize it. So you have to shake up everything we do. And every time you use it, you have to shake it because there'll be cream on the top. And if you shake it up and put it back in the refrigerator overnight, there'll be cream on the top again in the morning. So you got to shake it up every time you use it. It's a little more natural, maybe a little more trouble. We grew up that way, so I don't even think about it. If I drank milk out of the store, I'd shake it up before I drank it just because it's a habit. So for us, we were going to have to find a different way to market milk, or we were not going to survive. And so we came up with this. We decided we'd start bottling our own milk and give it a try. And so we decided that a more natural approach was the way to do it. Less money to get into it, and and a more natural, hopefully more healthy product coming out the backside. Locally, we're in an area that has producer processors like myself, and we're in a great area where people appreciate those kinds of things. They appreciate the effort and the sacrifice made by people to produce a product here at home. And but for us, we decided to take the more natural approach and not homogenize the milk and try to make everything as clean label as possible. We started with just whole milk and low fat milk. We don't have a cream separator. We pump the low fat milk into a tank that's on stilts, and we keep it under refrigeration, but cut the agitation off so the cream rises off of it, and then we gravity feed the low fat milk off the bottom. So our low fat milk is about 2%. Without a separator, you can't get it much lower than that, or at least we can't. So after we decided that we needed the bottle, we had to come up with a way, and I didn't have $500,000 to build a building to do that with. So I got to talking to a couple of people, and one of our inspectors particularly, about what would be another option to come up with a building to get this done. And so we came up with a refrigerated tractor trailer body. It's insulated. It's got a good floor in it, and as long as it meets the standards of the building part of the PMO, doesn't really matter what it looks like. So we paid $2,500 for this trailer, and started to work on it. And I think it probably took us about, I don't know, with wiring and plumbing and everything, we probably spent $15,000 or $20,000.
That's probably pretty inexpensive for a bottling facility, right?
That's the bar. I mean, I guarantee you there are plants that have spent more than that in just pipe. In a plant, because we have the bargain basement of everything. But
it meets all the standards.
But it does. We meet the PMO, and we produce a good product. It's not that we don't produce something that's as good as anybody else's. It's just that we were able to find used equipment. Not everything was used, but we had to be very frugal about what we bought. So if we got, for what we got in it and get out of it, I mean, we produce as good a milk as anybody. Our milk's tested by NCDA every month. They're out here every month taking samples, and we seem to pass the test with regularity.
All right, so you guys are bottling right now?
Yeah, bottling buttermilk right now. If you'd like to, come on in and we'll take the tour.
That sounds good.
I'll give you the 50-cent tour for free. Well, now we're in here, and we're into the hairnet and beard net area. So we'll have to start that. I'll give, for people who have real beards, I'll give you the Ran-Lew tour of how to make a good beard guard. They don't make beard guards for real people. They make them for people with trainer beards, and I have a real beard, so you.
How about me, Randy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you're kind of in between.
Okay.
You're working on it. You got the Ran-Lew starter kit going there. So we take a regular size hairnet and punch 2 ear holes in it, and then you apply the ear holes over your ears as such. Pull it around and tuck the beard in, and there you go. Now this is how you pass the Ran-Lew beard test.
All right, so here's me with the beard net here at the Ran-Lew Dairy, and Randy approves.
Absolutely. All right. Well, come on down here, and we'll start with the raw end of the process. So the milk comes in up here, comes in from the holding tank in the cooler room. It comes over and do a flexible hose. We pump it in. This is our milk tank on stilts that we make low-fat milk in. This is our 200-gallon vat pasteurizer. So the milk will come in this way, and either we'll run it into the pasteurizer or run it into the tank on stilts. We'll make it, and this is raw milk now coming in. So this is a raw milk line nothing ever but raw milk comes through here, no pasteurized milk at all. So, and we can't use this tank. We use it for, we can use it for storage, or we can use it for, or to make the low-fat milk like we do, or whatever. But that's all. And then we put it in a pasteurizer where, depending on what product we're making, we cook it to different temperatures. Whole milk is 145, chocolate milk is 150. I think ice cream mix and eggnog is 155. We have a chart recorder up there. The NCDA likes to make sure that that we're recording everything, or we're doing everything we're supposed to. So we record everything to make sure our temperatures are within standard. And then as we come back up here, after the milk's been pasteurized, then it's dropped out through a leak protect valve into a pump. Depending on what we're doing, we use this centrifugal pump usually for whole milk and for washing. And this is it's not put together, but it's a positive displacement pump. We use to pump heavier stuff, usually buttermilk right now. And so after it goes through the pump, we have here, this is a plate chiller or a press, and we call it. And so the milk comes into here at about 140 to 155 or 60 degrees, and going through this press, it's just like a honeycomb of water against stainless steel plates, and then milk on the other side of it, and it'll come out at about 38 degrees. And so that's the key to taste, shelf life. Is the faster you can get it cooled and bottled after it's pasteurized. And so, that press is this little thing. It's a very small $6,000 piece of equipment, but I'm telling you, this is the quality of your product right here.
I'm very familiar with that in the beer industry.
Right. Yep.
Yep. All right. So it goes through there, and then
so after it comes out of the press, goes through piping over here, and this is our bottle filler made by the Amish in Pennsylvania, and this is our bottling plant manager, Taylor. I guess she can demonstrate what goes on here. She runs this thing a whole lot more than I do, so she definitely does the better working of it.
All right, so just filling one at a time, huh?
Yeah, just one at a time, and it is gravity filled, so it's not deciding when things are full. That's something I have to decide. And cap them and go.
And what's the sort of throughput in here? Like, how much can you do per hour, per day?
The maximum I can do in a day is probably 500 gallons. Well, that's like a 12-hour day, you know.
Farmer day.
A farm day. But that's probably the most we can move through. And today I'm just bottling 200 gallons of buttermilk.
Okay.
The buttermilk has to, it's like yogurt. You have to get it hot enough, put a culture in it, and then wait overnight to bottle. So.
That's sit about 16 hours. Yeah, so we're here in the barn here, and this is sort of the mecca of where things happen around here. These barns were built by the Quakers back in the 40s. Alamance, Guilford, Orange County, they're just full of these gambrel roof barns. They made them all by the same design, just some are longer than others. That's about the only difference in them. And if you've been in this part of the country, I mean, you ride around and you'll see them everywhere. So I come from a family that likes to dance, and so I live in a very old house, and so the story I got from my grandmother was that they used to move the furniture out of one room, and the band would play in the hall, and they'd dance in the house. Well, as they started building these barns, you know, this is just a big country dance hall. So people would start, hosting a dance in their barn, and the story that I got was that they had a dance in this barn before they ever put hay in it the first time, sort of as a christening celebration or something like that. And so jump up about 30 years, and I like to dance, and so I decided I wanted to start having the barn dances again. And so the first year we had it didn't turn out too good. Had a band, showed up, played about 15 minutes and left, and that didn't work too good. So we were very fortunate the next year that we ran into a band from Bahama, 4 brothers, and their daddy and their uncles had always played together, and these brothers played together. And over the 35 years that they came, there were different incantations of it, but they were here just like clockwork anytime we wanted it done. And so we've had a lot of fun, and there's a lot of feeling of community that goes in here. And we've learned over the years that when we started, it truly was just the people I grew up with, or family, or whatever else like that. But as the years grew on, then it got to be people showing up that, well, if I didn't know you, I knew somebody you knew. And then then it got to be people just got to hearing about it. So, I think we had some Russians here one time who couldn't speak English, had an 11-year-old daughter. She was the only one who could interpret for us. But I think they had as much fun as anybody I've ever seen here. They didn't know, they couldn't understand the language, didn't know what was going on, but they danced the whole night. They had a blast. And the farthest I know, a guy came in for the dance. We had a guy, he's from Raleigh, but he's working in London at the time, so he used his frequent flyer miles and flew from London to Raleigh on Friday, came out here on Saturday, and flew back to London on Sunday, if I got that story right. So we've had people come in for a long time. It works. It turns out to be community outside of the community, and it's sort of like, and that's sort of the way that I feel about this, about our community of producers who are producing, whether you're producing milk or eggs or salad greens or whatever you're doing. I feel like, for all of us who are small, who have an entrepreneurial spirit that really, like being independent and like figuring out how to do it, well, this is what you do. This is how you do it. And I think it fits very well into the way I look at life, that people we need a community. You need to feel a part of something, and you need to devote some of your energy and your effort to making it work. And so I try to do as much of that as I can. And I think that we're very fortunate that we have support from NCDA. I think we're very fortunate that we live in an area where people appreciate the efforts that local people put in to producing a quality food product for them to buy. Everybody doesn't have that option. And even if they got the option, sometimes the consuming public doesn't appreciate it. So we're in a pretty good area here where people do actually appreciate it, and they will support it. I think that if the pandemic didn't prove anything to us, it should have proven that if the system breaks down, you're going to need local people to feed you, to do whatever you do. It's going to take local to do it. And I think as life goes on and we continue and try to figure out, what comes next. So one thing we don't need to forget about that is that if you don't support local agriculture or local anything for the most part, if you don't support it when you don't need it, it won't be there when you do need it. I think that's a take-home message for me, for anybody in the consuming public, that if you want the local businesses, whatever they are, to be there, you just have to support them.
Very well said, Randy. And if people are watching this, where can they find your products here in North Carolina?
Let's see. Well, most of our milk goes east of here, east of Alamance County. We have 2 Lowe's stores in Burlington and Mebane. We have all the Weaver Street stores, the one in Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Hillsboro. And we also have 4 Whole Foods, the the one at Waverly Place in Cary, and also out at Austin Place out on 55, Whole Foods Chapel Hill, and also in Durham. And there are also some kind of mom and pop smaller places that carry our milk. You know, if you happen to be in LA, that's Lower Alamance, you can go to Sykes Bahal to the general store, and they have it there too. So we're very fortunate. We're well represented and supported by the community.
Very cool. I'll leave links for your website and social media and all that stuff in the description down below.
Thanks
Thanks so much, Randy. Thanks for giving us your time.
Thanks so much for taking your time to come and be with us today.
Very much appreciated.
All right.
All right, Randy, we're out at your farm here, Ran-Lew Dairy. If you could introduce everyone. Let me start over.
Well, that's booed, right? I think people debate the don't let that go.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so
Randy, can you talk a little bit about the dairy? Can you talk a little bit about the dairy industry?
I don't know anything about it.